Pretty good. We walked out of the conference at 6 o'clock, so from Lansing, so we made pretty good time. I apologize for our lateness. Let's call the meeting to order at 7:15. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us have roll call, please.
Carlos?
Was that me? Here. I didn't hear what you said.
McCaney?
Here.
Shield?
Here.
Putz?
Here.
Mishler? Cooley?
Here.
And Edwards?
Here.
Okay. I make a motion we excuse Joe Mishler. He called me a little bit ago.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded by Ryan Shield that we excuse Joe Mishler. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Now, Ryan, do you have the purpose statement? I got a bunch of new people here tonight, so we will approve the agenda. First of all, Chair would entertain a motion.
So moved.
So moved by Ryan. Richard, second?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're good. Approval of the minutes from the April 19th meeting. Are there any additions or deletions?
Make a motion to do so. Support.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Putz, support by Mr. Shield. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our statement of purpose. The mission of the Holly Historic District Commission is to safeguard the heritage of the village of Holly by preserving the historic districts in the village that reflect elements of the village's history, architecture, archaeology, engineering, and culture. The goal of the Commission's work is to stabilize and improve property values in the historic districts and the surrounding areas, foster civic beauty, strengthen the local economy, and to promote the use of the historic districts for the education, pleasure, and welfare of the citizens of Holly. Public comment. Anybody wishing to speak at public comment? Okay, we have no old business. We will go into new business, the consideration of the certificate of appropriateness for the Moose Lodge address 210 South Broad Street. Who's presenting tonight?
I will be.
Mr. Stillwell.
May I pass out a few things to you, the board?
Please.
Absolutely. We have.
It's not much, but it's just
Thank you.
get it.
All right.
Brad Stillwell, the Holly Moose Lodge. I am a member and also a board member, and we have 6 other board members here in the audience today. What we're pursuing is a roof on the front part of the Moose Lodge. Cedar shakes were on there. They were falling apart. They didn't look good. We considered them a fire hazard. So the first picture that you see there are a couple businesses right downtown that have the same look as what we did have. And if you look at them closely, the pictures aren't very good, but they are in rough shape. So we are looking to, like we always do, maintain our building, make it look good. And the second page that you see there, the examples are Holly Gas, Snap Fitness has a metal roofing, and that is what we are attempting to put on our building. Third page is the look of the Moose now after the shingles are off. And then right next door, that's a metal product also, which is right next to us. So that's why the board decided that we wanted to go with a metal roof. Cedar doesn't last very long. It's a maintenance thing. We're trying to avoid that. So by putting on metal roofing, which we have already purchased, special order, cut the size, and this is what we have ready to go. And this is what we're looking for approval for. Any questions? Yes.
Is the metal roof you're talking about on 214, is that a copper roof?
Yes, I believe it is. It's not, you can't tell it's copper, but it's a metal product, yeah.
Okay.
Is it to the right and left of the number that says 214?
Correct.
Yes.
So it's this piece here.
These two here.
Yeah, it's right to the left of the Moose Lodge.
The picture's hard. I couldn't tell if it was that or
Yep.
the one over the.
The picture taker wasn't very good, which is me.
It's okay.
As a board, we decided that this would be the best product for us, a 50-year guarantee to not chip, peel, rust, maintenance for us, fire hazard. I know we have the holidays, fireworks going off. I mean, these shakes that we ripped off are very flammable and they're very dry, and so that's a consideration we, as a board, decided that it would be good to have a different product on there.
Yep.
Would they also be going over the window?
Yes, just that little section, the metal will be there too, Ryan, yes. Yeah, those were cedar shakes also, which are ripped off now.
Just for clarification, just just to let you know, the picture of Snap Fitness and Holly Gas, while those show us that it's used in other areas, those aren't within the historic district.
Okay. I was just showing presidents that it's in the village already.
No, I know that. Yep. And for clarification on the other two buildings on Main Street, neither of those are actually, those were put there prior to the historic district's existence. And while if they literally, as we told you, if they literally were to take those cedar shake off and replace them, we have no jurisdiction over that. What our job here would be to do is to actually get them to remove them, like Bob Hoffman did on the building next to it, taking it back to and preserving that historical nature. Again, because the Secretary of the Interior's laws are set up the way they are, if they were to take those cedar shake off and just replace them, that's considered repair. We don't have jurisdiction over that. It's only once they start to change the facade. So that's why in that conversation we had with you, if you were just taking one off and replacing them, that would be considered repair. Once you've gone from not replacing, then you're making a facade change, and that's where it is here.
Well, the physical facade isn't changing. We're just changing the product that's going on it. So as far as the look goes, it's the same look, just a different material that's going on the facade.
Yeah, if only the Secretary of the Interior would agree with you, but that's for this.
Well, at
board.
what point does the where does the historic part start?
Well, and that's what I wanted to talk to you. Part of the reason we were late was I did have some conversation at the Historic Preservation. Your pictures of your building are on my phone, and I've talked to several people about it, and I wanted to share some of that conversation, both with you and with the rest of the board. Nicole was there when we had the conversation. Two things, just so we know, and we didn't know this was available to us either, but Oakland County Planning Main Street Division actually would work with you for free and help you with the facade building on your building as far as the historic nature of that. I didn't know that because when we talked to Ron Campbell, who, by the way, if I can make a side note, Ron Campbell's not here tonight. We need to do something. He's not getting any notification or any packet. He didn't know the meeting existed.
I sent him an email.
Okay,
And he
well,
opened it.
we need, pardon?
I sent him an open email.
I'm just relaying to you what he said to me.
Okay.
So you may want to check to make sure he's getting it or find out if there's a better way to notify him. I don't know. I'm just telling you what he said to us this evening because I asked him if he was going to be here. I was hoping he was. That being said, I'll get back to the conversation. So that's one element of it. That makes you eligible then for grant monies to help change that facade or to bring it in to a more congenial look for the rest of the street. And I do know, because I've done some research on this, that balcony row next to you is actually the main floor of the old theater that was 3 stories high. And
Opera House.
I'm sorry?
The
Opera
Opera
House.
House.
Theater Opera House. That was in there, so we've checked on that. So there is an element of this building that is different from the other two buildings, and we're not trying to get it to look like those two. So that conversation being had, I think Nicole wanted to touch base on part of the conversation that was had as well.
Oh, yeah, we talked about, that there is a history to the building. It's a 3-story opera house, portion of it burned down. I believe Bev was actually the one that told me about the fire. Do you know about the fire?
Yeah.
No, I think it was like back in the 1900s. Is that right, John?
Yeah, it was early 1900s, I think it was.
There was a fire too in the 60s. So I think that, in this picture here, maintaining some consistency is important to the look and feel, that it's historic.
I guess that was I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I guess that was my question. Where does historic start? 1900s? 1930s?
So,
Obviously, this has changed. The whole building has changed, and it was approved as is back when. So how are we to be historic when it's not historic
40
now?
years.
Yeah, 40 years
40
back.
years, yeah.
So is this
Here was the
was
question.
this 40 years old that we're
Well,
seeing?
if it's been there since 1978,
1978. This
That
look
would be
that we
40
have
years.
right now.
Here's the question that Ron Campbell had, and he's an ex officio member of this council. He's the one with the architectural degree, and that's who I was talking to. I had somebody take pictures of the building today and send them to me so that we could show him what we were talking about. And here was the question that he wanted to ask. He said, is there a way that you've got the shingles off right now, maybe with an extra roll of tar paper or something across there, we can hold it. He said that he would like to work with you guys on that and help you on that design concept to take a better look at it and help put something together that's totally free of charge with you. It is something that is done through the county. So that work is there. And he said toward the end of June is when he could get to that project. It means we've got to keep it, secure for a couple months, and we could push that off. But that was an offer that he wanted to make and see if you guys were willing to join with that. And what it does is basically give you a long-term goal of what the front of that would look like as you go through your process on that. And that was the one thing that he had said when we talked to him this evening. So I wanted to offer that up to you.
So,
what's the rules to saying stuff while you're?
I'm sorry?
What's the rules? Like, can I just respond?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was just checking.
Oh, of course
Make
you
sure I
can.
didn't blurt something
I thought
out.
you were supposed to stand up, turn around, rock around, and sit back.
You have to stand on your left
Nicole-
foot.
On my left.
Yeah.
I want to bring your mic
Oh.
down so the transcriber can hear your voice better.
I forgot what I was going to
Messing
say
with
now.
you.
I know. It's okay.
It's nothing new, right?
So, no. No, it's not. So, I mean, June's great timeline, but I think the concern is that the material's already off and something needs to be put in its place. And they already have the material because they purchased it.
$2,000 and better on material.
Do you, yeah, and I understand you guys want to have something in place that you're not going to have to reinvest into it. Does the Moose have a long-term plan for building maintenance and what their plan is going forward?
In regards to the facade.
In regards to the facade, do you want to maintain the historic feel to it?
We
Is
were
that your
just going
goal?
to keep it as is.
That whole front of that building is brand new in 2013, because we did have a fire in 2013, so that's all new stuff.
Okay.
So that was all put there in 2013.
Correct.
There used to be, back prior to 2013, there was flower boxes in front, that's what caught the fire, caught that facade on fire. But that's all that stuff is brand new. We've already had a fire.
Yeah, we had it.
Cedar shades. Those are new cedar shades in 2013. That's why, like Brad was trying to tell everybody, it went the metal roof. We thought was the idea, and it matched the buildings beside us, and
It tied in, so there was some consistency.
It's the
It's the facade.
Right.
We understand that, and that's what we were talking about. And just so you understand, from a historic district, all we have jurisdiction over is the facade. We have jurisdiction over the front and the back of the building when the back of the building is contributing to the historic district. I'll clarify that by saying, the parking lot by Red Devil where you can see the back of those buildings from Main Street? The historic district is responsible for the back of those buildings, the front of those buildings, where they can be seen and where they're part of what they call the public place. So that's just for clarification.
Historic district?
I'm sorry,
Is that in the historic district?
is what?
Red Devil.
All of that section is in the historic
Now,
district.
don't they have a metal roof on what they just did?
No. The Red Devil itself is not in the historic district. I was referring to the buildings that show from where the open
No,
alley is from the parking
I
lot.
think what he's asking is the Red Devil in the historic district?
And I just said no,
No, they're not.
they're not. But when I said Red Devil, I was just referring to the parking lot so that you knew what part of the buildings I was talking about.
So I have a question.
You
You said those shingles were put on in 2013?
No, where the window is that you see there, there's a small portion of roof there. Those are new. When the fire, they had to replace those.
Oh.
The upper were all old and nasty looking, and
I thought we replaced those two, Greg.
no,
No?
I don't think so.
no, just where the window was is what was replaced. Everything else had been there. I'm guessing 12, 15 years somewhere in there.
And was it Cedar Shake before that too?
I don't know. I guess that's the question of the
That's-
whole
that's the
historic
question
part
we
of
were
it is,
asking.
what was there before? Shingle there before? I don't know.
So it was
So-
asphalt years ago. You guys put Cedar Shake.
Right. I guess that's the question mark in our opinion, that it's been changed at different times. Why is it an issue now? I guess is what we want to do now.
Okay,
The whole farm was just painted this past fall.
Yeah, we hired an expert painter. He
okay.
he was very expensive, but we did the perfect, beautiful job. So
Must have been.
we're not going to change any
Must
of that.
have been
is my
you.
point. No, it wasn't actually. It was an inside joke.
Oh, okay. Okay. So let me just clarify and see if I can take a little bit of the frustration out of the air for you. When somebody said, why is it an issue now? Let's just clarify that there's a legal responsibility that this commission has, that the village has by the existence of the historic district. It falls under the jurisdiction of the DDA. Or not the jurisdiction, but it would fall under the jurisdiction of the DDA if you didn't have an actual commission. And when you do a project like you did, you remember Jerry saw it, called me, and we came over and we talked to you. Everybody has to go through that process and submit, and it has to go through that process. And I mean no disrespect when I say this, but the fact that somebody comes and says, I already bought the material, I already spent the money, isn't really an issue that this commission has to deal with, because the process is to be here first. There was a gentleman that owned a building on Battle Alley that came in on the weekend, pulled the windows out, put a whole new front on the front of it, and did all of it, and by Monday morning it was all done. Unfortunately, in his case, he had to back up and go through that process. The battle with John LaCroix over the back of that building got ugly too, because he came in and tore the brick off and put up another spot, and at this point they're still waiting for that to be replaced the way it was supposed to. So when you make changes to a building ahead of time, it doesn't mean that makes it okay. It just means that the process wasn't followed properly.
Well,
In the case of your building, let me just finish. In the case of your building, that's what we were trying to do, was to track down some of this history to see what we were looking at. And I think what we're looking at here, if it's acceptable to this commission, because of the fact that those repairs were done over the last few years, and I'll be honest with you, since I came on this commission, one of the reasons we're re-examining the district right now is because we found that there were some things that weren't in compliance with the actual rules and regulations of the thing. So as I talked to Ron Campbell today, I think what I'd like to see us do in this particular case is look at this as a non-conforming or non-contributory building on that thing. And I would ask you this, that in the future, Oakland County Main Street is willing to work with you on a facade design that would bring it into a contributing nature with the two buildings that are on the side. And after all, the long-term goal of this commission is, as we bill ourselves the historic village of Holly, to bring us to that point. And that's the purpose of this. So I think what I would do is entertain a motion to approve the material that's there. And in that motion, I would say that the Moose would work with Oakland County Planning and the HDC in the future with facade design before they do any more repairs going forward. Is that acceptable to your group?
Acceptable.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that.
And actually, Mr. McCanny, he's always good at this. That's why we have him sitting right here. We have to do it within compliance of the Secretary of the Interior. So if you can take that motion and put it into the verbiage that we have to use.
All right, well, let me read a couple of these here. So this is the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation. And there's 10 kind of guidelines that they kind of go for. Number 2, historic character of the property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features and spaces and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Each property will be this is number 3. Each property will be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding a conjunctural features or elements from other historical properties, will not be undertaken. So we're labeling this building as a non-contributing asset in the historical district.
What's that mean?
Well,
Non-contributing? Okay.
well, let's
When
look at the building next to it, like the 2 buildings on either side.
Yep.
This one, that's Andy's place, has a brick facade with some interesting millwright at the top. It has windows. It's got lights inside the windows, so there's a meter and an architectural position in that building, right? And then the one next to it, although it looks kind of modern, but it still has a dental cornice. It has the brackets on the top and has some other features to it that would be contribute that to a historical district. The building in the middle, which is the Moose, its features are historic, believe it or not, because this is a example of a 1950s industrial type of
It's called mid-century modern.
mid-century modern. There you go.
Yeah.
But so I lost my point. Anyway, so that would be non-contributing to the
overall
To the
scope
overall
of the
historical
downtown
right.
historic district. Your building in that line of buildings is non-contributing because it came later after the fire. It came in the secondary. Now, it does have a contribution from the mid-century modern, which puts us closer to where we are over here. So that's what we're saying. As we go forward, today the intent is to approve what you're doing now with the understanding that if you go forward next, when it comes time that you decide you want to make a change, you'll work with the planning. There'll be grant monies available for a facade change, and at that point, they may come up with a design for your building that makes it more in line with the historical downtown village of Holly, and that's all we're saying.
So is the motion,
So when we say non-contributing, we don't mean that
Yeah,
to
it's
be
not.
insulting.
It's not.
That's a good thing.
It's
for
not
you right
insulting, but
And it's
so if the
it's-
building was completely destroyed, then it would be improper for a historical district to erect a building that would be, mimic a complete 1800s building with brand new materials, because it would change the historical record of the area. The idea of a historical record of the buildings is that there's nobody around to have stories. All we have is somebody that drove up on their bike or rode in their artificial intelligence vehicle and they happen to on Holly, and there's nobody here. They could walk around the district and get a feel or understand the historical significance of the community itself. So,
Well, I don't understand that if we celebrated 100 years in that same building, why wouldn't it be?
Well, the building's been there, just.
I'm trying to give you an out. If you want me to go back, I can
Wait.
pull it back.
I don't think that they're changing the overall look of the building by installing the new material. I think that they're
Well-
maintaining as an individual building, putting that material on it is still maintaining the architectural significance that it has.
We're just trying to match up to the other buildings, that's why we picked that color.
Mhm.
The building next to it's got the black, with the black roofing.
Okay.
Next door.
Again, but you're,
is there,
again, you're talking about color. We have no jurisdiction over color.
I'm talking about the roofing itself.
I understand, but you used the term color. You said you were trying to match color, and I'm just.
With the building.
I know, but I'm just trying to clarify. This has to do with the architectural side of this stuff, not the colors.
And
And what I said was I was trying to make it in such a fashion that we could approve that.
okay,
And
Mike,
I
I got
think
a question.
I'll make a motion.
We'll agree with that. And then if there's any other further stuff, you're telling us we have to give it open comment.
Okay.
Trying to change it 20 years from now.
Correct.
20 years
Mm-hmm.
from now.
They'll work with
okay,
you for free on
okay.
the design.
I got a question. here. I got a question.
No, but
Is the motion that's on the floor
Go ahead.
right now?
There is no motion.
There's no motion on the
I
floor.
thought you made a motion.
But it's not within the guidelines of the Secretary of the Interior. That's why Mike's going to format it for us when we get
Okay.
there. But what's your question?
My question, I guess that scratches out the question then. I guess I would have followed if there was a motion on the floor. But
Okay. Part of my problem is, and I run a lot of different meetings, and the way I made the motion is typically how we can do that. But for the HDC, we have the guidelines. The Secretary of Interior, the motions have to be exactly the way they're designed there. It's just a wording thing. And Mike's kind of like my parliamentary procedure for the Secretary of Interior. He keeps us on track.
Okay, keep vamping, and I'm trying to figure out which one that fits it.
Oh,
What was number 1 again?
Number 1's a property will be used as it was historically or given the new use that requires minimum change to its distinctive features, materials, spaces, or spatial relationships.
So since the fire, has the Moose maintained the same facade?
well,
And-
the fire you're talking about is the small fire they had that came through the window. Or are you talking about the
Well,
fire?
I'm talking about in the
that took-
past 40 years, is the material that they're putting on there changing the facade of
That
the
building has had that physical look for how long?
Yeah,
years.
and they're not changing that by putting that
It hasn't
material on
changed
it.
any. I've
So
been
it's-
a member since '73 and it hasn't changed that much.
Right, so that's why I said, that's why I labeled it as mid-century modern.
Yeah,
And I said this would fit within that realm there.
yeah.
So we,
All right, well, I think we can use number 9.
okay,
And number 9 says, new additions, exterior alterations, or related to new construction will not destroy historical materials, features, and spatial relationships that characterize a property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and will be compatible with the historical materials, features, size, scale, and proportion, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment.
yep, that'll work.
So basically, this is, we're not altering the size of the roof or the overhang. We're basically putting up a protective material to keep water out of the property and preserve its historical significance into the area.
So you guys are all good with this, everything's?
We're getting there.
We're almost there.
you just gotta get the verbiage right.
Just a second.
You want to go ahead and make the motion? Use number
Okay, well,
9?
what are we doing a certificate of what? Which kind of certificate?
Certificate of
are we gonna pull?
appropriateness.
Appropriateness? I don't know if it's appropriate, but
Define the word appropriateness.
yeah.
As opposed to, which one were you thinking?
There's another one, isn't there? There's
The
appropriateness.
one to proceed?
Right. It's like,
No, but I think based on what you read in number 9, I think the certificate of
I think
appropriateness
it's
is,
okay.
if we're looking at it as mid-century modern, I think we're okay. And that's part of the conversation. It's part of the reason we didn't leave, because I finally got the 3 people together that I needed. In that conversation was Ron Campbell, Ellen Thackeray, and Amy Arnold, and I had the pictures of your
They're the-
building
they're the
that
people,
were on my
yeah.
phone.
That's
Those were the 3 people that I had put together for it.
And I was there.
okay. We'll use the certificate of appropriateness then.
Yep,
Here we go.
and go with number 9.
Here's a sample. All right, I make a motion to issue a certificate of appropriateness citing Secretary of Interior Standards for Rehabilitation number 9 for the Moose, or Royal Order of the Moose. Is that the proper name? Royal Order of the Moose?
Property at 210.
Property at 210 South or North Saginaw? Or Broad Street?
South Broad.
South Broad Street.
Second.
Second.
Well, we got 3 seconds. That's a 6th. Is there any further discussion?
I think that the Moose did a great job picking out the material, and they did take into consideration making sure that it looked nice. And I appreciate your commitment to making sure that you have a nice building in the village and all that you do for us.
All right.
Thank you for your help in maintaining the building.
So, roll call, please.
Edwards,
Yes.
Cooley,
Yes.
Shield,
Yes.
Putz,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Mishler, I'm here, Cullis.
Yes. Motion carries. Gentlemen, let me just close for your part by simply stating that it's the intention of this commission to do, as we said in that statement, the mission statement that I read to you, and as your lodge goes through rules and regulations and has to jump through the hoops, so do we. And one of the things that I did when I got on this commission was I started to look at it, and I said there are areas we're not within compliance, and we're working on that. Part of the reason that we were at this seminar this weekend and taking time to do that was to learn these things, to get the appropriate people so that we get ourselves in a good position. Because the bottom line, we as you only want to see the best for this community. We only want to protect that heritage that allows us to say, come and visit the historic village of Holly. So I thank you for your understanding. I apologize for the confusion, and we're working forward on it. Some of the things we are going to be doing in the future as we put together phase 2 of this program that we're working on, we're going to talk about that next, is we will be, as we get through that process, we will be sending notice out so that people that are in the historic district not only know that they're in it, but understand moving forward anything that goes on. That means we have to train our commission, our administration. That means that we have to let the community be better informed going forward, and that's what we're here to do. And again, like I said, I apologize for the confusion, but I spent a couple hours on this today working on it for you because I knew the meeting was coming tonight. I needed to get those people together. So that's what enabled us to get to where we were.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right?
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very much.
Now, whoop, you pull that back.
So we should leave then?
What's it?
You can stay as long as you want.
Well, because what we're going to do is discuss, if there's one of you that's interested in listening, we're going to now be discussing phase 2 of how we're putting this commission together. So, and it's not going to be long, but I just want to inform them where we're at.
Yep.
See you at the Moose.
See you later.
Thanks for your help.
This consideration on I didn't notice this, but on the general business, this consideration of State of Michigan Historic Preservation Conference. This was actually on here because the original meeting we were going to have that we were calling special was before the conference. But I'm going to take the opportunity to use that and discuss what we did work out. Mr. McGee, you and I drove to Lansing to have that meeting with both Mallory. Mallory is from the Michigan Historic Preservation Network, and Ellen Thackeray works with them. And Amy Arnold is with the SHPO office, and the SHPO office is the government entity that handles the grant funding for projects like yours or other restorations that are throughout. And we met with them today on the boundary, Steve, that you and I talked about when we were there. And going forward, what we're going to do, 2 things. First of all, as of today, the Village of Holly Historic District Commission is officially a member of the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. That will allow us, I signed up for the membership that gives us 10 names, so everybody will receive the monthly information that comes out of there, because I'm a firm believer that education is the best way to move us forward. The other thing that was recommended both by Amy and Ellen in this meeting that we had was that we will now enter into phase 2. The SHPO office has come out with new forms for each property to be properly registered and cataloged in that process going forward. And once we create those sheets going forward, Steve, you remember how they talked about the percentages and what areas would be covered and the story that goes with it? Once we have those, we'll be able to take that boundary that's been recommended by the original committee. We will be able to take that boundary, fine-tune it based on those catalog sheets, and it's from there that we will be able to make our recommendation to the council for the historic district. So, Dave, everybody understand what I just said basically there? Any questions?
Nope.
Moving forward. Okay, so
is there any need to make a motion on this, or is this just a presentation?
well, no, I was just telling what we did. The phase 2, we're going to need to set up.
Do we need to do the resolution? And
Well, we're going to have to put together the resolution, but that's not for tonight.
okay.
But we have to put together a resolution, and we have to set up a committee that'll work on that. And if there's somebody
Can
that's
I-
willing to spend
I
the
would be
time
happy to take care of that.
to head that committee,
Yes.
sure. Okay, if there's somebody that would like to work with Nicole on putting those pages together, we could actually, I think what would be good for the commission as a whole is if we schedule a workshop for that initial first meeting,
Mhm.
so that we all understand exactly what the process is, and then we can as commissioners, we can divide up portions and take them with them, and we can make the plan for doing it then.
I just want to make a point, George, because one of the things that Ellen did say is that not all of the commission can be on the study group, that we need to include other people. I know that Katie from the DDA is working on the CLG package, and completing our survey is going to be an important part of that. So I'd like to ask Katie to participate in that if she's able.
I know Ron Campbell said he would be a part of
And-
it.
yeah, Ron
I didn't mean
Campbell.
that the whole commission would be part of the committee. I just meant the initial workshop so that the commission understood the momentum going
Sure.
forward. All right? Does that seem to fit well with everyone in the commission? All right?
Sounds good to me.
Then now you've heard the information I wanted to move forward with. So, that being said, we'll move on to commission staff and comments. Dave, I know this is only your second meeting, so you're learning a whole lot of stuff. Have you had an opportunity to look over the Secretary of the Interior's information and go through that?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. These names that we mentioned before, I've been working with Amy Arnold and Ellen Thackeray now. This goes back when we first started this. I actually went to Lansing with Jerry Walker, Joe Mishler, Jeff Miller, Joe Mishler, and Ardith Reagan didn't drive with us, but she was a part of that meeting by teleconference. Those are the three people that were involved in. Yeah, it was only a couple. You got to remember, I've only been here since May of 10. This meeting was just a few years ago. We went and met with him to start this whole thing in motion so that we could get it corrected and get us within compliance. But my point is, those are the three people, Jeff Miller, Joe Mishler, and Ardith, that were on that original board when they started to put this thing together in the beginning. So we had a chance to start fresh, to look at it there. Joe has come on the commission to help us move this next segment. Ardith was involved in that meeting via the telephone. She wasn't able to travel with us, but she was a part of that. So we are spending a lot of time. We are doing due diligence to make sure we get it right this time and move it forward in a positive nature. So, and we're going to be having some seminars and some training sessions. They're actually going to come out and do a work study for people that are in the historic district so that you can see. One of the things that Commissioner McCanny mentioned was the fact that we did a study group. Were you part of that study group the last time?
I think so.
When they came and showed the pictures, it was
Yep.
a Saturday. They did a whole thing on the thing. They were showing buildings in historic districts, and what Mike was talking about was they had an historic district, and the best example I could use is our high school over on College Street. Here's a building that was built like 1917, and it sits there, and the architecture is the statement. If that building minus the rest of that were sitting there by itself, and that was a building that was down in Ann Arbor, they wanted to utilize that building for a community center, and they wanted to add on a gymnasium and a theater and so forth. In that design, the purpose was not to make the new ports of the building look exactly like the old. They literally went with a chrome and glass addition to that building so that when you saw the final product, you had the new element of the building was very specific, and the historical nature of the front was still intact. And they also showed us things. There was a building in Ann Arbor. You know, you hear about people, we're working right now on the Waterworks building on the south end of town, and you hear people say, that building's dilapidated and it should be torn down and it's gone. And as they said to us today, you look for four elements in a building. Are the bones good? They are. Do you have a purpose for the building? We've created a purpose for the building with the river being labeled a National Paddle Trail, and we're going to show design concepts of what that building can do for the park and for that facility going forward. And she said, these are the elements, and then of course you need money. We always need the money. She said, but these are the elements that tell you whether a building can be preserved. And probably the best example of that was they showed this beautiful building in Ann Arbor, and they said, is this a building that could be preserved? And you would all look at that picture and say, absolutely. They showed us the next slide of the building, which wasn't taken straight on, was taken from the angle. And as you said, no, the fire took the whole back of the building out. It was gone. But they took from the architectural integrity that was standing at the front, and they rebuilt the building. And today, it's a vibrant building down in Ann Arbor. And after that study, I was in Ann Arbor one day, and I actually walked into that building. But that front facade that gives the story to that neighborhood still exists. So there's a lot of things that are involved in the historic. This is not about why do you care. We're not trying to be mean. We're not trying to pick. But as an owner of an older home in town, I would hate to see somebody come in to the house next to me and take the Victorian away and totally change it, because then the values of your neighborhood start to drop. And they have studies that'll show you, like Marshall, Michigan, and these other towns, Ann Arbor, that have the historic district. When that historic district is developed and preserved, the property values go up. And then people like yourself, who just bought a house up on College Street, the Bailey House, and restored that house, you wouldn't want to do that if they were tearing the ones down next to you. Once you start to do it, you become the ripple effect, and then the next guy does it, and the next guy does it, and the end result is you build up that community. So that's why we're working on this. We're going to get it right. We're going to get it laid out, and we've got a good core of commissioners that we're working with right now. And pardon?
I says, I'm thanking God right now that the gas station isn't in the historical.
Yep. Well, just so you understand, let me now that you touched base on it, let me tell you, and this, you'll find this interesting. Don't get excited and jump out of your chair. The gas station could be in the historical district, but again, doesn't mean that it's a contributing factor. Take East Maple Street as an example. Everybody knows where Park Street is, and the row of the big Victoria, Artist's house is Victorian, the one next to her is Victorian, mine's Italianate, the one on the other side is Italianate. You come down a couple of houses, and there's that red brick ranch. That's in the historic district, but it's a non-contributing factor. If you go up College Street, everybody knows where Dick Roselle's house is. It's either the first house behind him or the second one, burned down years ago. Remember that one? She came to the commission. Mike and I went out to that house. That house was built in
78.
78. It was built to look like an old house, but it was built in 78. That doesn't fall under the jurisdiction of the Historic District Commission because, it's called non-contributing. So
Well, 78 now falls.
So the historic,
kind of
Because it's
underneath.
40
the
years.
historic district isn't the demon that some people want to make it out. It's there. It's very specific. We're not affected by the paint color. We can't tell you what to do with the inside. It's just there to protect that heritage of the original building,
We could.
the architecture.
We could adopt a color palette. It'd
No.
take a lot of work.
Well, then I just want a little simple question,
Sure.
and I'm not arguing or nothing.
That's-
Just take downtown, for example. It seems like every building on the facade, everybody's got something completely different than the next. Nothing matches downtown that I see.
It's not about matching. It's about the architectural integrity because they didn't match back in the day. If you look at those pictures 100 years ago, each building didn't match. They don't necessarily.
A lot of historical towns like
It's
Holly,
just a
they
question
have,
of
they have
it.
different
If you look at the old
buildings.
hardware store, that's a beautiful building. If you move down where Bittersweet and Pigeon and Parlor, those are two separate shops, but it's one building.
Right.
So it's about protecting the architectural integrity of the building, not trying to make everything match, not trying to make it all look alike. I'll give you probably one of the best examples that has been a success story for this commission. There's a house, Kitty Corner Mine, on the College. The next street is Center.
Center.
Center on the back of the old high school. Okay, on the corner of that house, they came to us. That house had that 8-inch aluminum siding, the metal stuff, put on it probably back in the 70s or the 80s. And if you go by and look at that house today, I've got pictures of the before and the after, and they will be a part of future workshops for us because it's a great example. That house had that 8-inch aluminum siding on the front. If you go and look at the house today, the porch lines go in an angle. Back in the 70s, somebody stuck a board across there, straightened it out, and trimmed it with the aluminum siding. On the side of the house, if you look up in the peak, there's a triangle window that's leaded glass. Back in the 70s, they just aluminum sided right over the top of it. If you look real close at the windows, those are all Dutch design. The bottoms are wider than the tops with the trim boards, and they come out. Under that metal was the original outline of those windows. We worked with those people. They were allowed to put vinyl siding on it because the old siding had been destroyed by the insulation and the years of the metal. But what we got out of that house, when you drive by it tonight, look at it. The peaks are back on the porch. The windows back on the top. If you look at the garage, the old hay door is back up there. Those windows, they put all the window trim back on. It's beautiful. It really looks nice. So there's a benefit to it.
True, yeah.
So are there any other comments or questions for tonight?
I've got one more.
Sure.
You were talking when you first started out about funding available. In the future, if we go to do something else, is there actual funding that would provide for stuff?
There are grants out there available through SHPA. There are grants through quite a few different groups. At one time, the DDA had facade grants available here in town.
Not
whether-
anymore, because at the moment, because our budget is.
Well, I was going to say,
Okay.
that doesn't mean
There is a
they don't
line
have them
item
right now.
For facade grants
The
to
place
help out
that
with
you
that.
talked about that has the funding and grants available, would that have covered what we're doing right now?
Yes, that's
Typically, it's a
what it's
matching.
for. What would have happened is they would have done the design concept on the front of the building. It's like a master plan. They would have done the design concept mid-century modern. How does it fit into the rest of the street? You would end up with this drawing that says, here's our goal. Doesn't mean you're going to do it all tomorrow, but here's our goal. Phase 1, which would be this, is this much. You would apply for the grant, and they're typically anywhere from 60 to 40% matching grants and funding's available. When the DDA was doing their facades, I think they had a $3,000 grant available based on the project that you were doing. So there's different grants out there. They change periodically. I don't know whether you follow, any of you are on social media, but I posted last Wednesday, I went and testified in front of the House Tax Committee for for House Bill 51, I'm going to get these numbers screwed up. 5178, I believe, is the House tax credit. The RTA is 5870. But I testified in front of there because they're looking at putting a tax incentive. If you were to take your building and do a total rehab, somebody mentioned that you've been there 100 years. If you were to do a total rehab to take it back to the way it was, there are 25% grant tax credits available for projects like that going forward. There's a 20% federal grant. So there's grant monies from different groups out there. You have to find out where they are. You have to apply for them, and you have to jump through the hoops. But there are monies available for that kind of stuff.
So-
Obviously, if we go to do something again in the future, we should come down and see you people first. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and George, I do want to.
In your case, yes, because the rear of your building shows where the public can see it. That alley has some of the old storefronts that used to be back there at one time, and it falls under that. But that's why we said, in the future, come to us, and as Ron Campbell said, the county would come out, look at the building, they do the report, they do the design concept, they show you, they recommend color schemes that are part of the period. We don't dictate color, so I wanted to clarify that, because I know, but I said that once. So there are a lot of groups that are willing to work with you as these projects go forward.
Yeah, and George, I do want to add one thing. So with us putting together, completing the survey process, and having everything in place, we then are able to apply for the CLG, Certified Local Government. There's only 33 current communities in the state of Michigan. There are grant monies that go unawarded every single year. So us getting that specific designation does open the doors for more financial benefit for our community.
I think she was telling us last year they issued grants with a 60-40 split, but the money comes from the feds. They have to spend it. When the grant season was done, and they were all done, they ended up being about a 90-10% match.
And they're required to give back.
They're required-
$110,000 every year
Mhm.
to CLG communities that apply for grants. And out of those 33 communities, they're hard pressed to get 5 or 6 that'll submit shovel-ready grants.
It's unbelievable.
I'll
So
have to talk
there's-
to John too, George, because we're getting ready to start redoing the back of the old store across the street.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that we move forward on these. And I know, like, when you guys come in, it's like, why do you care? And everybody gets upset. But there's really some programs out there since I've been the township supervisor we've been working on. That $3 million that we got from Holly Road, when I started with the county on that project, they basically, when I first brought it up, he said, yeah, it's been a problem since the 1990s. From that meeting, I went and I called the state rep, I called the state senator, I got a hold of the different people that I had met, and I've kept these cards, and I've kept my communications open with them. And within a week, I got a phone call from the head of the road commission that says, Mr. Cullis, this isn't how this works. You don't call this and you don't call that. And I told him, and I said, well, I'm not understanding. How does it work? He says, you go through me. I said, I did that. You blew me off. He said, I didn't blow you off. I said, I apologize. Maybe I missed it. What was your solution? Well, there isn't one. I said, then you blew me off. My intention is, the reason I ran for office is to get stuff done. We're going to go after that. So we started meeting with people. We started talking. Somebody said to me, have you thought about a Tiger grant? I looked at the Tiger grant. The road commission said, yeah, we'll never get one of those. I said, why not? We've got the National Cemetery right there. If you can't use the veterans to get their attention, I've got a hospital up there that serves 40,000 people. The next argument came, Holly doesn't have 40,000 people. I said, well, we do if we had Groveland and Springfield and Rose. Those are all people that head the same way down the same road. It is the only north and south road that completely goes through the township. So detours are not easy out here. We put it all together, and they told me, they said, don't get excited. Very few of those. Michigan has received less than 1% of the Tiger grant money. A week after he told me that we probably won't hear till the end of the summer, and don't get excited because the odds of us are getting it are small. Debbie Stabenow's office called me to tell me we got it. We called her office every Monday morning. We call the state reps, I call the senators, we stay on it. I've got a sheet in the office, it's a formula. Keep making noise until they're tired of hearing from you.
Now, technically, the district commission is responsible for all exterior surfaces of all buildings in the district. It's not just parts of the building that people can see. So we can make that delineation if we're going to worry about parts of buildings that are up against other buildings. But if you really look at the guidelines and the training that we've had, it's the whole outside of the building, because it's a historical record of what happened in the time period. And you have to picture somebody walking around with a clipboard taking pictures or drawing pictures without anybody talking in his ear, looking out, trying to figure out the history of the area. So
right. And
that's,
I only shared that part of the visual because through conversations with Ellen and Amy, they've said that that's most of what the historic districts, that's kind of how they,
right.
If the building is backed up to the other building and you really can't see it,
Right.
we don't get excited. But those that are visual, like that open section of the parking lot by Red Devil, those are the ones that are concerned.
Yeah.
And you're going to see, I think the DDA is working on a revitalization of that alley from a walkability standpoint. So we are working on things in the right way. We're out there, you can ask Katie, we're out there looking for grant money every day. We just beat up Consumers Power the other day when they come and asked for help. They're going to be coming through the community in about 2020 to replace the Saginaw Trail pipeline. And it comes right through Holly Township over by Fish Lake Road. And she said, we're going to need your help. And we had the meeting and I said, good. Because here's what we need. And we opened the paper and I said, I'm looking to get a gas line down North Holly Road before I put a brand new road in. We need lights in Battle Alley. We're going to need some trees replaced because you guys just came down and we made our list, did we not? So
We already got a response from them.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
This might be out of bounds or not. Does anybody know what the heck they're doing on Holly Road?
The building?
that's Magna.
How many buildings? They gonna be
That's-
at Myers or?
That's, first of all, that's Grand Blanc.
Well, yeah,
That's
I
north of us.
Grand Blanc,
But it's Magna, the building that's across the street by the water tower.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
their new building, and if you go by there today, I just saw it coming here. There's a brand new sign with a picture of what it's going to look like.
I thought it was gonna be a Myers.
No, the Myers is coming in either 19 or 20. Let me tell you what's happening there. They are going to take Dort Highway, bring it across the expressway, and touch Baldwin.
Oh, really? Okay.
And when it comes in and ties into Baldwin, they just announced that in the last year. When it comes down and touches into Baldwin, Myers is going over here.
Oh, okay.
So
the
Myers
corner.
is coming. They already own the
About
property.
5 minutes from my house.
Yep.
Is that in the corner of Baldwin and North Valley?
No, it's a little further over.
More towards Fenton.
A little past the little church that's there. Yeah. And in
Little-
front of the hospital, what you and I know as the front lawn or the landscaping of the hospital, all of that property in there is owned by Genesis, and their plan for that, I've seen the drawing, is boutique shops. Not just a strip mall with a cell phone place and a burger joint or a Coney. It's actually going to be specialty shops that are unique to the area. And they call them like a boutique strip mall. Artistry and different things like that.
Take all that quality out of there and put in there.
Evidently. That's the development they're looking at going forward on that building. So there's a lot of things going on. You know, one of the things that's different for our community right now, and I think I was quoted in the paper not too long ago, I said that Holly's on the verge of exploding. And I said we need to be ahead of that motion so that we help to control some of that explosion as it comes to us. I sent back the Woodlands ordinance to the Planning Commission. I I grew up on a farm. I grew up on 100 acres. I have a problem when somebody comes in and tells me I can't cut my trees. And I said, I think what we need is an ordinance that's a little more progressive, because to me, trees are a renewable source. You come into a piece of property and you cut the trees down because you're going to develop something. What I want to know is that you're putting trees back at the end of that development. To me, that's the proper way. You're going to see that we're working on a master plan for the farmstead. That's the property north of Elliott, south of Laring. I think I have those two streets right.
The barn moved.
Pardon? The barn that moved? Yeah. When I came in, I said, what's the purpose of this property? And Harvey Sorensen, who's been involved in it probably the most, looked at me and he says, well, we wanted to save it. And I said, well, where are we going? He said, well, there's never been any money. And I told him, and I said, there will never be any money if you don't have a plan. Right now, we're working on a master plan. When we're done, much like your building, we'll be able to turn and say, here's the master plan for the farmstead. Here's our goal 25 or 40 years out. Here's what we want to make it look like. And at that point, we will be able to say, that's the plan. People like your groups may step forward and say, you know what, we'd like to be a part of this plan. We'd like to help fund that. We'd like to help fund this. So those are the things that we're working on in going forward.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Mike.
Support.
I'm sorry, wait a minute.
Oh,
I've been hearing about Holly Township, and I haven't told you about this place yet.
Okay.
Oh, what's that?
So real quick, Barb handed out Chapter 155 Historic Districts.
Yes.
And this is from 1978. That's what we're governed by. It was amended in '93, and it has so this is just all for your record. And we have 52 properties listed here, and that's what George was talking about earlier, where we're going to review and categorize and register those. So, but this is what we have now. We have 52 that are in the current district, and thank you to Barb for making those and pushing them out. That's
Okay,
all I got.
we need to clarify one thing so that people don't get confused. This is the residential portion of the historic district. This does not include the downtown.
It does.
A little bit.
Pardon?
You
it
got the
does.
moose in
District
there.
1 and District 2.
bit.
District 1 includes the downtown.
Yeah, the Moose is in here, McKay's is in here.
Where am I seeing those?
District right there, George. District
Page
1.
7.
Model railroad.
Cattle Alley, maybe.
Oh, okay, it is in here.
That and you got Wingelmeyer's, some other ones there, like Raskin.
Then let me ask you one well, I know by looking at the railroad, we're gonna have to check this list because the names of ownership aren't correct.
That's true.
Yeah.
That'll be part of the survey, George,
All right.
and the reviewing this information.
All right.
I don't see the separation here. I know that when this was done, it was Historic District 1, Historic District 2. Did we just compile the list and leave the numbers out?
In '93, I think that's what they did.
Oh, okay. So this will be homework for everybody on the commission then.
There will be a test.
All right. Thank you.
Well, thanks for everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a nice night. Thanks for coming.
We got upset anything, but it was like, we already spent the money and we were ready to do it, and then it was like, just kill it.
No, we understand.
Yeah, 10-4.
See you at the Moose.
Thank you.
All right.
John just texted
Calm
me.
down, don't sign me up.
Okay.
Any further comments?
There are no pickle houses.
Okay, and we're adjourned at 8:13.